Welcome to the Unit Economics Podcast. I'm Josh Dubinsky. On today's episode, I sit down with Hilary Dubin and Caroline Huber, co-founders of Jones. Jones combines FDA-approved nicotine mints, a form of nicotine replacement therapy, or NRT, with an app that provides behavioral support and community for people trying to quit. We talk about how their own experiences with nicotine led them to rethink an outdated category, what it takes to build physical products alongside software, and the realities of manufacturing and fundraising in a tightly regulated space. This was an extremely transparent look at how they're growing a business in what I consider to be an incredibly important category. I learned so much during our conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hilary and Caroline, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. I'd love to just start with a background on yourselves, and if we could sort of lead into maybe the months, weeks, days ahead of forming Jones, that would be great.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much for having us. In case the listeners don't know, Josh and I used to work together, so this is fun to be back on a call. And I'm Hilary. Caroline and I have been friends since we were 8 years old. So we first met on a soccer team. We went to high school together. We ended up going to college together, not on purpose. It just kind of happened that way. And then my background is that I studied cognitive neuroscience in college and then went into product management. So where I met Josh is at Atlassian. I was a PM there for 5 years, ended as head of Confluence, monetization and additions. So I managed two other PMs, team of engineers, and pretty much that whole time was getting so addicted to the Juul. So was just like vaping all day on my like drive from San Francisco down to Mountain View, like in between Zoom calls. And it just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to be doing this anymore. Like, why can't I make it through an hour-long meeting without hitting my vape? Like, that's crazy. Like, I feel so dependent on this thing in a way that like I'm a really independent person. So it felt like this like clash. And so I saw that Caroline had quit successfully. She has been my best friend forever. So I was like, how did you do this? Like, I need some help. Like, what is the trick? And she introduced me to nicotine replacement therapy, but there were a ton of issues with the products as we took them. And so I'll let her kind of get into her background and how she found NRT and how she introduced it to me, because that's kind of how this whole thing started.
Yeah, it is funny to be back on a call together. But yes, Caroline, that'd be great.
Well, thank you for having us. I guess I'll jump in post-college. I was working in politics, living in New York, also getting very, very addicted to the Juul. Our CEO at the time vaped openly in the office. So then it became like a free-for-all. He was like, if I'm vaping, you guys can vape. And then we all just started doing it. It was like 2017 when we thought it wasn't that bad for you and it helped you stay awake. And it was a sad time. Anyways, during COVID, I moved back home with my parents, and my mom's a physician. And so I knew if she saw me vaping, she was going to be really disappointed. And I tried to cold turkey quit, but I just could not do it. Like, my withdrawal symptoms were terrible. I was getting horrible headaches, couldn't focus, felt really, really down. And so I came clean like less than 24 hours after being home. I was like, Mom, you need to help me. I have been vaping a lot and I'm really suffering. Is there anything that you tell your patients to take? And she was the one who actually suggested NRT. But before suggesting it, she was like, let me understand how much you're consuming. Because one of the biggest issues with NRT, and especially with her patients who she was seeing try to quit vaping, was that they underdose, because you have no idea how much you're vaping. You don't think of yourself as a cigarette smoker. It seems less intense. So you underdose, in which case you don't get any of the alleviation from the symptoms of withdrawal that you're suffering from. So we sat down together, and it turns out I was vaping the equivalent of like 40 cigarettes a day worth of nicotine. So she was like, of course you're not able to cold turkey. One, because you're like dying, you feel miserable right now. But two, the NRT that you've thought of or tried to take hasn't helped you at all because you're taking too little. So she also gave me the assurance of like, this is safe for long-term use. Do not try and like stick to a specific step down plan. You just take it when you need it, when you're feeling cravings, and like slowly you can step down if you need to. But I've had patients who take it for more than 20 years. Like, just focus on kind of step one, which is like making a healthier choice, getting to a better place, and being able to stop vaping, which is like obviously pretty harmful, and now more studies have come out to show that. So when Hilary asked me to help her, I also recommended NRT and walked her through the same step down that my mom had walked me through, the same dosing plan. And that really became kind of like the inception of Jones, was us talking through like, why is this so shitty? Why is this so hard to figure out? Why is there nothing on dosing? Why is there nothing on like all of the cognitive and behavioral support piece of this that you need when you're going through withdrawal? That is like, as we got more in the weeds, it's like 50% psychological, 50% physiological. So the NRT really only helps on the physiological side of the drug. The other big thing, and then I'll stop talking, is that the NRT we were purchasing was just so shameful to carry around. Like, I would vape, I would smoke an occasional cigarette publicly, but with the NRT, I always kept it really hidden, and I felt really, really ashamed of taking it.
Why do you think that is? What about the incumbent NRT options felt like there was a stigma attached to them?
I think it's a few things. Most obviously, I think it's branding for one. They're all branded like kind of an old pharmaceutical product in a way that like really reminds you of kind of a grandparent who's been smoking for 60 years. That's who takes this product. Part of it was that smoking rates had been steadily declining for 2 decades because we had so much information that validated how bad smoking was for you. But then these new vapor products came into the market and really modernized the way of smoking. And then there were no products that had caught up with like, okay, well, now we also need a modern approach to helping people quit and meeting people where they were. So that was a big part of what we were looking to achieve. And I think the way in which something presents itself, what it says about you as a person, is really important to our generation. And so carrying around something that made you feel like this like crusty old smoker didn't exactly make you feel proud of making a healthier choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So this sort of method that your mom introduces you to, it works for both of you, is that correct? And you realize there's something to that, sort of. There's something there, right? I
There's
guess my
something
my
there.
there's something there. My I guess my line of questioning is that the catalyst behind saying, okay, there's something here, we should start something, or was there, I don't know, what led to actually saying, okay, we should start this, like we should do this, like there is a gap in the market and it's like it's our place to fill it.
I think that was the spark in that we were kind of the first cohort of Juul users. Like Juul popularized vaping in 2017 when like it really wasn't in sort of like the modern and like popular culture until then. And so we're at like the older end of this first group of Juul users, and we get 5 years in and we're like, okay, I want to quit. I need something to help me do it. There aren't really any tools out there to help us do it. So we figured out that like these NRT products that are designed for quitting smoking, like all of the instructions are like, if you smoke your first cigarette within 30 minutes, and when you vape, you're like, well, I don't smoke cigarettes. Like, this doesn't apply to me. So I think the spark was once we realized, like, this works for us, but there are all of these issues. Like, the packaging makes you feel like you have a disease. The channels are wrong. It's embarrassing to go to a pharmacy and have someone unlock this and check out and feel judged by the person that you're this young person who like has a problem with the smoking habit. Like that's not fun. And then the products that we use didn't include any behavioral support. And as we started talking to medical experts about the best possible way to quit vaping, we heard time and again that it's the combination of FDA-approved NRT and behavioral support, where NRT doubles your chances of quitting. When you include behavioral support, it increases quit rates by another 40%. So as we started piecing together, like, okay, these products work, there are all of these problems with it. If we can solve those problems, like, we are at the very beginning of this massive wave of other young people like us, and even into like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, where like they're going to need help. And we are kind of like this guinea pig group. But there's just a whole generation now who's using nicotine in a way that they weren't using before. Like Caroline mentioned, smoking rates were declining steadily. They were down to like 6% of teenagers smoked in 2016. And then as you get to 2018, you have 40% of teenagers are vaping on a weekly basis. Like it just is this massive shift. And I think what we've seen between like 2020 and now is that like vaping has gotten less popular, but nicotine has stayed. And so people are just switching to pouches, they're switching to cigarettes, but there has been this cultural shift where nicotine is like back in the mainstream. And so I think we were kind of in the right place at the right time to realize like, oh my God, we need to solve this problem for ourselves, but it's going to be a lot bigger than just ourselves.
For context for listeners, can you just briefly explain what your offering actually is, right? It's the combination of the NRT product with the support system. Like what do both of those actually look like?
Yeah. So our secret sauce is this combination. It's the holistic support where you have our mints. I don't know for the people who are watching, but like this is our tin. So we have the FDA approved, clinically tested, doctor recommended mints, but then in a way that like I would put this out on the table at a restaurant. Like I take this out at work. Like I don't feel embarrassed to carry this with me. And then pairing that with our behavioral support, which is our app where you do a daily check-in. It helps you to build new habits, but it also has this really supportive community. Like a friend, like a couple months ago was like, wait, I think this is the cutest corner of the whole internet. Like people are so supportive. They're so nice to each other and just like sharing their wins, sharing rough days. There's an AI chatbot in there. There's games that you can play. And then also for the first 30 days, we have like a daily text coach. So if you don't want to log into the app, there's also the option to just like text with our AI coach and get these habit exercises to help sort of just like reframe your outlook, build new habits. It's rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's the mix is like the clinically proven products, the community, and the behavioral support. And that's what like really sets you up for the best chances of quitting.
So, what did the early days look like? Did you initially know that you wanted to launch with a properly branded box with mints and an app? Like did you come in knowing exactly what you wanted to launch with?
So early days where I had actually left my job in politics, I was doing micro targeting for progressive groups in red states. Loved doing something that was making an impact. Really wanted to work actually more with physical products, found politics super disheartening, and was ready to make a change. So I was in business school and Hilary and I were already in talks about starting this company. We applied for an accelerator through NYU. And so that really was like the impetus to kickstart this thing is we ended up getting $10,000 of grant funding, which doesn't sound like a lot now in the scheme of things, but it was exactly what we needed. And part of the requirements is that you needed 2 people on the founding team. Both people had to dedicate themselves full time. So Hilary left her amazing job, which was huge in terms of a sacrifice to start this with me. And we kicked off in that program. And I think there was a lot of support, a lot of customer interviews, kind of as the central part of the startup program is like, get out of the building. You need to talk to people and not just be building in a silo. And so I think a lot of the early decisions we made around combining both the cognitive behavioral therapy and updating the category had a lot to do with the conversations we were having with people who smoked and vaped and were looking for products and community to really help them. But it just started with the 2 of us in New York City, and big shout out to NYU and the accelerator program because it was amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna shout out the eLab. And I think just to give you a window into like how things change, I think like our earliest idea was like make a better Nicorette. Like these products work, but they suck. And then as we started thinking through like, well, what is a better Nicorette? We realized that it needed to have this like community and behavioral support element, but we weren't sure like what form it would be. So our alpha program was a text bot. So we were like, nobody wants another app. We don't need to build an app. It's too expensive. It's like another thing for people to download. So we had a beta with like 50 users who we had just found like on our website, posting our LinkedIn, emailing people in our text alpha, which was like a combination of like preset exercises, but it wasn't like hooked up to ChatGPT or anything yet. I was like Wizard of Ozing it in the back. So it's like the bot would text them, and then if they replied, it'd be me like at all hours of the day, just being like, I'm so sorry to hear that you're having a hard time. Like, here are some resources for you. But I think that that first iteration, like, actually was really helpful because I'm talking to customers all day, every day, like our first 50 customers. And so I'm realizing that, like, they have a lot of questions around anxiety. They have a lot of questions around nausea and stomach pain. Like, they are interested in connecting with other vapors where like just having a text bot doesn't give you that like accountability and community and support. And we realized that like, okay, we could start a Discord channel, we could start a Slack group, but like really what people want is a place to engage with each other. And that's where we realized like, okay, we should actually layer an app on top of this, because you can get the behavioral support from SMS, but like you can't get the community. And I think that that's like really what's special about Jones, is this community of other quitters who are like going through the same thing and kind of there to support you.
Simultaneously, how did you go about sourcing the mints, about manufacturing the mints when you first started? And I ask everybody this question because, as somebody who's worked exclusively in software, the idea of going out and figuring out how to manufacture a physical product seems so daunting to me. So I'm curious what that looked like for both of you.
Yeah. Well, we're really lucky, I would say, to have such complementary skill sets, because the idea to me of doing anything software related is incredibly daunting and scary. And we have Hilary, who's the expert in that. So we're able to like really divide and conquer. So we're able to like dual track these things of building out the cognitive behavioral therapy, building out the social support and community piece while looking for manufacturers of the physical product. What we found early days is that there are very limited suppliers who have the right FDA approvals to make this sort of product. And they had basically no interest in start talking to people who were starting a new company and had no experience in nicotine or pharmaceuticals. We had so many terrible calls with manufacturers, with attorneys, with people who were like, you girls should just stick to what you know. Do something in fashion. We're like, we don't know anything about fashion. What are you talking about? So there was definitely a lot of pushback and a lot of headwinds going into something that's so regulated and in a totally different space than we were in. One of our really early learnings was like, we need to build out an advisory suite of people who have the skills that we don't have in order to like make this thing a reality. And we connected with a next gen nicotine expert who had been at British American Tobacco for 17 years, solely focused on research and development of next gen products. So that's products that are smokeless and is better for you. And so he's been really instrumental in helping connect us to the right people who can manufacture these products, the right people who will take a meeting with him because he has the right resume for them to be like, okay, this is something serious. And so we really needed his support early days in order to get the attention and to get the meetings with the people we needed to manufacture the product, unfortunately. But that's the reality.
What was the immediate reaction in the market? Was it a success right away? Did you find that people were like immediately finding success with the product, or did it take a while? Did things not click right away?
I think in terms of like early reception, the way that we planned our launch was that we actually brought on a social media agency way before we had any product. So we just started making content that was like funny and relatable to people who vape, so that we could like build out an audience of people who vape. So like before we launched a single product, we already had like 25,000 followers on TikTok, because we would post these videos. We'd just like go out and interview people on the street in New York and be like, what do you think about vaping? Like, what's the craziest thing you've ever done for a vape? And like, people have crazy stories. Like, we had a few of these videos go really viral, like 10, 20 million views. So I think that was kind of an early indication that, like, okay, like there's some interest on the internet in like vaping culture. And so if we can just like create content that's like dynamic and interesting and funny and educational, then like that's all that matters right now. And then we can worry about like selling the product once we've like built out this community and this audience. But I think that was our first sign of traction, was like, okay, like people are engaging with our content. And I think we were able to like make content that people liked because we vaped ourselves. We're like, I know what it's like to like secretly hit a vape on the plane, because like I've been there. And so like we could like tell these embarrassing stories and like make funny memes that were relatable. And then from there, it's not like sales were like $1 million overnight. I think we did like 30K in our first month, but like we were really happy with that 30K. And then we just kind of like kept growing from there.
What were some of the biggest regulatory surprises early on, or even today?
Oh, every day there's a new one.
This is honestly too close to home. We can't even talk about regulatory surprises this week. But Yeah, I'll share with you offline, maybe, Josh. We've had some doozies come up as of recently.
I'm curious if there are any like concrete examples about something you were trying to launch, a change you were trying to make that we don't have to get into specific like the specifics about whatever the regulatory aspect might be, but something that was blocked due to something regulatory.
The product that we make today is made here in the US, and we just have been exploring some other manufacturers overseas. And there was one manufacturer who we were pretty excited about. And then this week, it turns out that like the Chinese government is fully taking over oral nicotine production for all companies in China. So we're like, okay, I guess that manufacturer is maybe not a good option anymore. So it's like it didn't fully stop anything that like we were considering other things. So it was just like one avenue where okay, like this door has closed, maybe another one will open. But I think like in this space, it's like every week there's a new regulation. Like California is no longer allowing online sales of oral nicotine products. Various states are banning flavors of oral nicotine products.
Even nicotine cessation products or just nicotine products?
No, so we're lucky because we're NRT, which is classified as a drug, an over-the-counter drug. So our regulation in the current space that we're in is much more defined and is much clearer. But we just live in a broader space of like oral nicotine products. And we were exploring a new product that we had been working on for a while. And then it just comes under Chinese monopoly and is nationalized. And so you're like, okay, well, ciao to that. It's always something. But the idea has always been to sell FDA approved products. And I think it just goes to show you that like there is really reason to manufacture domestically. It just shores up a lot of those kind of open-ended questions.
And I would also just add like one, this wasn't a blocker per se, but like just kind of a big sticker shock when we started like really exploring like what does it look like to change our ingredients? What does it look like to change our packaging? What if we want to release some new versions of our product? Like the process of going through FDA is like between $4 and $7 million. Like it's not a simple like, oh, we're selling a nutraceutical vitamin. We can change the formula every month if we want to. Like it's really so much red tape and so many hoops to jump through, which I think is like great for the protection of consumers. Like you don't want all these like random nicotine products being made with no regulation, but I think the cost of taking those products to market really is kind of shocking.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like an absolute nightmare to have to think about, like, on the back burner as you're also trying to navigate every other difficult thing that comes up when you're building a company. What have been the most successful marketing channels to date?
So far, we've had a lot of success on Instagram. Like that has by far been our biggest driver. Social, I guess, going back to the regulatory question, I think this was something that was somewhat surprising is that getting our website up and running, there were so many either social media platforms or even payment processing, website hosts that wouldn't allow you to sell a nicotine product. And there was a lot of explanation that had to go into like, no, we're FDA approved. This isn't just a recreational oral nicotine product. This is an NRT. And we've also seen that like, regardless, we're not able to have a TikTok shop, for example. So we had a really big following and really a lot of success building awareness on TikTok, but that has not been able to be a platform that we can help sell product on. So I think building out an event strategy has been something that we're really focused on and something that we think is important to build community, not just online, but in person. But in terms of just kind of direct to consumer sales, where we've seen success is Instagram has been a really good place for us. And we've been like testing with out of home and trucks and all sorts of stuff that is a little harder to quantify, but that we think has been really valuable for brand building. What would you say, Hills?
Yeah, all of that. You nailed it. I think like in the beginning, organic social was our number one channel. Like it was so important to all of our early sales because we essentially had no marketing budget. So like we were really just counting on like viral memes to bring people to our page. As we grew and fundraised, like we were able to actually like put some dollars behind ads. And I think like continuing to like pair funny organic content with ads and educational and like trustworthy sort of like thought leadership type content has been a really good strategy for us. And then we've also seen some really good traffic from SEO, where we've invested a lot in our blog. And we have a medical advisor, Dr. David Kahn, who's at UCSF, and he reviews all of our blogs. And so we put out a lot of content on like, what does it mean to get nic sick? Like, what do you do if you have nicotine poisoning? Or like, what is vape tongue? What happens, like how vaping impacts your hair and your skin? And I think that like those blog articles have been really helpful with sort of the search shift into AI, where like when we first started, ChatGPT was like barely a thing. Like it was traditional SEO. And now it's like everything is AI overview and AI summary. And so we've kind of like really had to optimize our blog content to be picked up by AI. But now, like, I mean, you could try it now. If you Google nicotine mints, like we get pulled into the search, like the AI overview. Or if you Google like Nick sick, our blog, when I checked it yesterday, was getting served higher than like the National American Lung Association. Like I think that investing in that type of like just like medical and educational content early on has also really helped us with organic search.
So you teed up my next question perfectly, which was, given that your demographic, given that the audience you're going after is Gen Z and below in general, how much have you thought about optimizing for AI search? And I'm curious if there are any learnings that like you can share, anything that's like worked well, any surprises. This is such a budding channel for people, and I think people are still just like figuring this out as they build it. But I'm curious what you've learned about trying to optimize for AI search specifically.
Well, I think one thing also just on like who is our target audience. Initially, we thought it would be 21 to 24-year-olds because that's the demographic group who vapes the most. But actually, what we've seen is that our customers are mostly like late 20s into their 40s because when you're 22, you're going out all the time, you're vaping, you're not really interested in quitting. Like maybe you say to yourself every Sunday night when you have the Sunday scaries, like, I need to quit this week. Like I'm throwing out my vape. But then on Thursday you buy a new one. Like those people are not actually trying to quit yet. And what we've seen is that like as you approach your 30s, you're like, okay, I'm like entering this new chapter. Like, I want to focus on my health. Maybe I'm getting married. Maybe I'm thinking about having kids. Like, what does it look like for me to like enter this next phase of my life? And what do I want to take with me? And what do I want to get rid of? And I think that's where we really come in, is for people who are on their own accord deciding to make a healthier choice. And then when they're ready for that, we're here for them. Because like Caroline mentioned earlier, like, we're not here to convince you to quit. You can come to that on your own terms. And like, we've been there. Like, no amount of somebody telling you that vaping is bad for your lungs is going to convince you to quit. Like, you just have to be ready for that. And so our demographic is actually a little bit older than we thought, just because that's who like really is more motivated. And just in terms of AI, I think like providing really helpful, concise content that's trustworthy and reviewed by our physician, like our medical expert, so that we can get those placements where we're literally with like the National Heart Society, like Lung Society, like Truth Initiative. Like, it's kind of crazy that like our Jones blogs are up there with these like very trusted sources like Mayo Clinic. And I think the other piece is just on like, as more and more brands use AI to pump out content, I think that we've wanted to lean in the other direction of like, we're a more premium brand. Like, we want to come across always as like thoughtful and empathetic, and that we really care about our customers and we really care about what we do. And I think what that means for us is actually like leaning into handwritten notes and leaning into like the craft of our photo shoots and the craft of our content, so that we can kind of differentiate in a space where like you can make like AI UGC content of like fake creators reviewing your product for $20, but like that's not our ethos. And so I think it's kind of like this like counterculture backlash a little bit of like AI can be like this cheap way to pump things out. And because like we don't want to be seen as cheap, we want to be seen as like thoughtful and like investing in our customers and in our products. And so sort of like not falling into that trap.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how quickly that, we've seen that backlash, the aversion already that we're seeing to AI slop. It was immediate. I think it's really noteworthy how many companies are saying similar things. Like, I think it's like pretty clear that that's like the right strategy in general, and that's what people are gravitating toward. The topic of fundraising was briefly mentioned earlier. I'm really curious how that's gone, what that's looked like, in whatever detail you can share. I'm curious, I guess, with each subsequent round, like what it is that you needed to use the funding for, like what was unlocked with each round.
Yeah. We've raised 3 rounds now. We did our pre-seed in September of 22. That was like 1.1 million. That really got us through the MVP build out of our community and app, as well as our first order of the NRT product, and basically left no room for anything else besides one hire. Hilary and I both were wheeling our product into a storage unit in Brooklyn together, just crossing our fingers, being like, we really hope we sell this stuff, because what on earth are we going to do with this humongous, the MOQs were just insane for our size and scale of business. So that was initial money, was just to get this off the ground. We did that by a combination of a few strategic angels, friends and family, and then the biggest check came from the Warby Parker, Allbirds, and Harry's Razors founders. They started a fund, good friends, and they were just extremely helpful in having us think through early D2C strategy, what pitfalls people make commonly, when to go into retail and when to still hold on those big contracts, and how to really enter the market, I think, in a very calculated way that wasn't crazy in terms of cash burn. And so that was kind of raise number 1. What do you think, Hilary? Was that the hardest one?
I think our seed round was the most stressful
Yeah.
because we already had a business at that point. Like, we had raised the 1.1, we had customers, we had a team, we had 2 people on our team, but, still, that's 2 more than we had before, that's double. And then going into our seed round, I think we just, really wanted to raise after January because we knew that, there's some seasonality to quitting and New Year's resolutions, and, that was a really good time for us to raise, but we were gonna run out of cash in March. So we were, so stressed. I think the Christmas break, going into that seed round was we were not sleeping. We were having nightmares. We were trying to bring in a couple of safe notes, which were the early part of the round, but they didn't really know why we were asking them to do a safe. But really it was because we literally needed that cash to survive. We had $60,000 of credit card debt. Yeah, we're personally guaranteeing the credit cards. We're if we don't raise this seed round, we're on the hook for $60K to American Express. I don't know what we're gonna do. So that was probably the most stressful. I think the actual process of pulling the round together didn't take that much longer than any other fundraising round, but I think just where we were at in terms of runway and figuring out how to fundraise was so brutal. So to anyone listening who is considering fundraising, just do it before. You need to have at least 6 months of runway, ideally 12. Don't fundraise when you have 3 months of cash. It will take years off of your life.
I would also say something that we've heard is commonly a mistake is that people don't spend the money initially because they're like, whatever, I can manage my own books. On having a good accountant. And obviously you don't need a CFO, but even someone who's fractionally a strategic person in terms of your financial overview, I think would be extremely meaningful at an early stage, because what we saw then following that round, which was very stressful, is I think our cash burn and the amount we were spending after our seed was quite high, because it was still the 2 of us and we were like, we just raised $3.8 million. The world is our oyster. And then, and then we were again in a somewhat stressful position raising our Series A. Whereas now it's everything is so much more tightened up. We have so much more information. Every single week we have a really thorough financial overview. We know our books are closed in a timely manner. There's just so much more insight. And I also think as the business grows, you have so much more information around like repeatability, what retention rates look like, what a stabilized CAC over a year looks like. So that comes with more time. But I will just say I think having a really clear plan in terms of like marketing budget and spend prior to a seed round would come highly recommended, because that was our first time we had any money for a marketing budget, and we've luckily, like we didn't blow it. Like we've had payback on every cohort and things are going really well, but it was just another unnecessarily stressful raise. And it's nice to be in a position where like we raised last year, we don't have to raise in the coming year. We have like way more than 12 months of runway. And you're just like, okay, I feel like we're standing on some sort of solid ground right now, which is a really lucky position to be in.
Yeah, some really, really valuable lessons, and I appreciate the transparency. Are there any external metrics that you track around the success of Jones users? Do you have a sense of how many people you've helped quit? I know you could look at the number of purchases that you've had, the number of like distinct people that have purchased the product, but do you have a sense of how many people have used your products and then subsequently go on to quit?
I mean, I think I can at least start with like, we know that we have 90,000 customers. So, like, of that group, I would say when we look at our like cancellation data, like, what is it, Caroline? Now, like about 40% are canceling their subscription because they have successfully quit. So, I mean, if you do 40% of 90,000, that's what, like 30,000, a little more.
A little more, but yeah.
So I think like we know that nicotine is a really hard thing to quit. And so like we're never going to be like the exact perfect silver bullet that like every single customer now is guaranteed to quit for life. But I think that we have seen really successful quit rates for the people who are trying to quit altogether. And I think we also know like our quiz in the beginning of our website and our app, we ask people like, do you want to quit nicotine altogether, or do you just want to cut back or use nicotine in a healthier way? And about 60% want to quit nicotine altogether, but 40% just want to use nicotine in a healthier way. So I think the metric isn't always, did we help you quit nicotine altogether? It's more just like, did we help you reach your goals? And whatever those goals are, like we want to help you to get there. And we're not judging you for just wanting to cut back or like wanting to smoke an occasional cigarette. It's just like getting you to a place where you feel like you're in the driver's seat and like you're not like having a panic attack because you left your house without your vape. And when we ask our customers after 30 days, like how likely are you to recommend Jones to a friend? I think we have like a 9.8 NPS.
Yeah,
So
that's huge. I can't think of another product with an NPS that's that high. That's like remarkable.
yeah, so I think that's
Thank you.
it's like we want to help people quit, but we really just want to get you to a place where like you feel good about where you're at. So I think like the NPS and CSAT is kind of more like what we pay attention to.
I'll add the other reason I think there was a bit of a pause is it's really complicated in the space to figure out what a quit means. Just because for some people, it's like, I said I quit successfully, but then something really stressful happened 4 months later. And now I'm using Jones products again because I want to quit again. And so you're seeing kind of the longer we've stuck around, we've seen a lot of these customers cycle through who potentially just for the first time stopped reordering because they realized like something came up in my personal life and it wasn't the right time for me, but then they come back and then they quit successfully. So it's just kind of a hard thing to quantify. I think the best data that we have on it is probably app data of people who say they're consistently tracking less and less nicotine use over time, but it is a bit of a tricky metric.
Yeah, it's a really good point. My question should have been, do you have a sense of how many people have found success with the product? Because there is something really important about not stigmatizing people if they don't successfully, quote, quit, right? For many people, a successful outcome is just reducing the amount of nicotine that they're intaking. And so I should have reframed the question, or I should have framed it differently to begin with. What's something that you've changed your mind about since starting Jones?
The longer we've done this, the more I realize how important it is to just have a flexible mindset, because there is so much change on a daily basis that like you hear about something that if you're somebody who is incredibly rigid in your ideas of success and your expectation for the future of the business, I think it would take a massive toll on your mental health. And I think being able to start this sort of a company with also a partner who has a really flexible mindset is something that has just been so valuable. And like right before this call, Hilary and I had this discussion that I think could have like really sent someone into a spiral in terms of like, here's a big decision of like a whole new thing that we have to consider. And I think time and time again, just approaching it with like, what are the options on the table and what's the best strategic decision for the company in like a calm and collected way has been something that I've really valued working with Hilary. And I think is something that like we've ingrained in the team, seems to just like roll with the punches in a way that I think anyone is going to, if you have a startup, face those types of kind of like what could be existential questions happening on like a monthly or weekly basis.
Yeah, so you gotta change your mind every day.
Universally applicable advice. I think we have time for one more question. Where do you see Jones going 3 to 5 years out? Do you see sticking solely with nicotine, with NRT, or do you see growing into a broader behavioral platform, if you will?
That actually is a really good question and ties into your previous question, which is I think when we first started, we saw Jones very much as an umbrella of like, quit anything with Jones. We have customers who are asking us, like, I actually quit nicotine with Jones and now I want to quit smoking weed. Like, do you have a track for cannabis? Or like, I want to reduce my alcohol consumption. I smoke every time I drink. So, like, can I track my drinks in your app? So I think we had this big vision of like, we're gonna go into like this whole behavioral, like build healthier habits, do anything with Jones. And I think that that's still on the table. But I think for the next 5 years, what we've realized is like, you can't do everything. And focus is really important to actually success and like getting to where we want to be just in the nicotine market. And like, if we use our limited capital to go after nicotine and cannabis and alcohol and gambling and sex, like you can't win all of them. So I think like over the next 5 years, I think where we see ourselves is like being the household name for healthier, better for you nicotine that will help you quit or cut back. Like if you want to quit Zyn, if you want to quit vaping, if you want to quit smoking, you think of Jones. And like that's I think where we really want to be, because there's no brand who owns that consumer headspace. It's like maybe historically it was like you quit smoking, you use Nicorette gum, but like with all of these new nicotine products, like I think there still is so much opportunity for us to be the healthiest, best for you, safest nicotine option. So I think that's where we're heading for now. Who knows? Maybe in the future we explore other vices, but I think one thing we've learned is like you do really need to focus.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for the time. If you want to share with listeners where they can find Jones, please feel free to do so.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys can find us at quitwithjones.com or at quitwithjones on any social media. This was really fun. Thanks for having us.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can stay up to date with the latest episodes. Thanks for listening.